In the following clip you're about to watch, we see a terrifying example of a child interacting with something that an adult is completely blind to. A mother is just casually filming her little boy, Jensen, while he lines up his toy cars on the living room floor. It's a completely innocent, quiet moment, right up until a sudden noise echoes from the other side of the room. What makes this video so chilling isn't the sound itself, but Jensen's immediate, visceral reaction to it. According to his mum, he is not typically a cuddly or clingy kid, but the absolute second this happens, his survival instincts completely take over. Watch what happens when his mum starts asking him very specific questions about exactly what he is looking at.
What? It's okay. Do you see someone?
Yes.
Who do you see?
Dad.
Who is it?
Patio.
You see someone over there? What are they doing? That's what they're doing?
Yes.
Are they scary? Are they nice? Like, do you want to go play with them? They're not there no more?
Yes.
They are? What are they doing? Is there still someone over there by your toys?
Yes.
Is it a man? Or is it a lady?
Sissy.
A lady? It's a woman? Do you know her name?
Dad.
What's her name?
Dad too.
Oh, she's in the kitchen now? Oh,
It's high.
she's up high?
Yes. Dad. Oh. Dad. Oh.
What?
This.
What is it?
Dad.
You tell me, I don't see anything.
Oh. Dad.
You keep pointing by your toys. Is there someone by your toys?
Oh, shit.
You keep pointing to the chair.
Oh.
Is there someone in the chair?
Yes.
Can you point to where you see someone? Where are they?
Dad.
They're right there. What are they doing?
Dad. I see. Dad.
The chair?
Dad.
Over by your toys?
Yes.
Well, are they gone now? Did they go bye-bye?
Dad.
Right there?
Yes, I see.
They're by the chair.
Yes.
Can you wave to them if you see them?
Dad. Dad got it. Mommy.
Yeah?
Dad. I see.
You see them?
I see.
Is it boy or girl?
Good.
A girl?
Dad. Good.
You see the girl?
Oh. Dad.
Can you ask her name?
Good.
A girl. You see a girl? Does she make you happy or scared? Scared?
I see her dad.
Yeah, you keep pointing to the chair.
Good.
A girl? Is she old? Like, is she maybe mommy's grandma?
Dad. Good.
A girl?
Good. Dad.
A girl sitting over there?
Good. I see that.
You see that? You see a girl?
Good. I see that. Good. See.
Oh.
Shit.
Did she wave to you?
Look, I see that.
Is she nice?
Yes.
Oh, she is nice. Where is she?
Bye-bye.
I know you're waving to the chair, but where is she behind? Like, can you look at her? Is she there? I don't see her, do you?
Papa.
Oh. Did she leave?
No.
No, she's still there?
Yes.
Where? I put you down and you go show me where she is? Go show me. Go by her. Can you go give her a high five?
Nope.
Why?
High five.
You don't want to?
There is nothing more unsettling than a toddler casually describing a nightmare standing right in front of them. When she asks what the presence is doing, the terrifying face and sound he mimics to demonstrate is pure nightmare fuel. But the absolute scariest part of this footage is how he physically tracks the entity's movements in real time. He doesn't just stare at one dark corner. He points to the end of the living room, then tracks it moving into the kitchen, and finally points straight up to the ceiling. In paranormal research, an entity that defies gravity to crawl or hover on a ceiling is almost never classified as a standard human spirit. That kind of unnatural, spider-like movement is a classic hallmark of something much darker, often associated with demonic entities or crawlers. The fact that this entity is intentionally keeping itself hidden from the adults while actively showing itself to the toddler is a textbook isolation tactic. It knows the child's sensory filters are still wide open, and it is deliberately using that connection to feed off his pure, unfiltered panic. After little Jensen's terrifying encounter with whatever was crawling on the ceiling, the family understandably set up a security camera to see what was actually happening in their living room. And a few days later, the camera caught another incident. The older brother, Tucker, is just getting ready to head out with his mum, but as he's standing there, the environment is clearly highly active. Keep your focus on the little toy duck sitting completely by itself in the middle of the floor, and keep an eye out for the strange, illuminated anomalies floating through the air. Watch Tucker's body language closely too. It looks like he might actually catch a glimpse of the movement out of the corner of his eye before they walk out the door. When you combine floating orbs with actual physical object manipulation, it completely changes the conversation. Skeptics love to quickly debunk orbs as just dust particles or bugs catching the infrared light of a security camera. But in paranormal research, when an orb is captured in the exact same frame as a heavy physical interaction, like a toy being dragged across the floor, investigators classify those spheres as concentrated balls of raw spiritual energy actively trying to manifest. The creepiest part of this footage is the timeline of the movement. The entity moves the duck slightly while Tucker is standing right there, almost like it's testing the waters to see if he notices. But the absolute second the front door closes and the house is completely empty, the toy is forcefully dragged even further to the right. It proves that whatever has attached itself to this family isn't just putting on a spooky show for an audience. It is physically occupying their space, and it has absolutely no problem playing with the kids' toys the moment they leave the room. In this next clip, we look at the absolute worst case scenario for anyone who lives by themselves. The guy filming this is just returning home after stepping out for the night. As he walks up to his house, he casually glances up at his second-story window, but instead of the dark, empty room he was expecting, he sees something that stops him completely in his tracks. Someone, or something, is already inside, looking right back down at him. Keep in mind, his caption explicitly states that he lives completely alone.
No mamen. Acabo de llegar del trabajo y vean lo que estoy viendo en la ventana. No mamen.
Seeing a pale, almost translucent face staring out from a pitch black room is pure nightmare fuel. In the paranormal community, entities that present themselves exactly like this are often referred to as watchers. Unlike poltergeists that aggressively throw things around to cause chaos and fear, watchers are incredibly still, quiet, and deeply territorial. They usually claim a specific room or floor of a house and simply observe the living. However, the fact that it is intentionally hovering right at the glass while he is standing outside shows a terrifying level of awareness. It isn't just mindlessly haunting a corner of the room, it is actively looking out the window, watching him return. It is a bold, territorial display, basically daring him to come inside, unlock his front door, and try to go to sleep. You see, just because you pay the rent doesn't mean you actually live alone. So, what do you think that is? I'll leave you to be the judge. In this next clip, we tap into one of the most primal fears you can experience. You're home completely alone, locked in your bedroom, when someone starts knocking and calling your name in your mother's exact voice. The only problem, the first time this happened, she was actually on the phone with her real mum at that exact moment, who confirms she isn't anywhere near the house. When dealing with a mimic, the golden rule is to never respond and never open the door. But watch what happens when she refuses to answer and the entity decides it's completely tired of waiting in the hallway.
Hey guys, I'm home alone and I'm getting ready for bed.
Adrena!
Mom? Are you home?
Adrena! Are you there?
Wait, I thought you weren't going to be home for another 30 minutes. What?
Adrena!
Her scream, as that door slowly swings open to reveal an empty hallway, is absolutely bone-chilling. But that final moment actually sparked a massive debate in the comments. Are mimics physically capable of opening doors on their own? In traditional paranormal lore, the answer is almost always no. Mimics are considered psychological predators. They copy the voices of your loved ones, specifically to bait you into opening the door, because they lack the kinetic energy or the spiritual permission to cross a closed boundary on their own. They rely entirely on trickery to get an invitation. So, what does it mean if the door opens by itself? From a paranormal theory standpoint, it suggests two incredibly terrifying possibilities. Either this entity has been feeding off her raw panic long enough to gather the physical power of a poltergeist, or it was never just a mimic to begin with. What do you think it was? In this next clip, a man was walking through the Valley Plaza Mall late at night, long after the stores had closed and the crowds had gone home. It should be dead silent, but as he's walking past the dark storefronts and empty massage chairs, he hears something that immediately makes his blood run cold. The distinct, echoing sound of children laughing. So, he immediately pulls out his phone to document it and manages to capture the giggling on camera. But as he's trying to figure out where the sound is coming from, he notices something moving in the shadows down the hall. Keep your eyes on the dark kiosk counter in the distance and listen closely.
On everything I love, I just heard a group of kids over here laughing. On everything, bro. I just heard a group of kids laughing. Where the hell the kids at? What the fuck? Bro, I know I'm not tripping, bro. I just heard a whole bunch of kids laughing, bro. You hear that shit? What the fuck? Bro, I'm in the mall by myself. Where the fuck is that shit coming from? I know y'all heard that shit. Bro, what the fuck? I'm about to get about this bitch. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Staring right at me. Right there. My heart beating fast as fuck, bro. I'm scared as fuck. There's a person right there. In a red shirt. Right in front of me. Right there, y'all see him. There's a person right there. Bro, what the fuck going on? He just standing there. Look, he just standing there, bro. Bro, I'm out of here.
Hearing a child's laugh in an abandoned or empty space is basically the ultimate horror movie cliche, but in the paranormal community, it is actually taken very seriously. There are generally two schools of thought when it comes to phantom children. The first is that it's residual energy. Moles are places of high emotion, excitement, and energy, especially for kids. That intense joy can basically get recorded into the environment, playing back like a broken tape when the building is quiet. However, the second theory is much darker. Many investigators believe that malevolent entities will actively mimic the voices of crying or laughing children. It's a predatory tactic designed to instantly lower your guard and trigger your natural instinct to go investigate and help. When you combine that phantom laughing with a physical shadow ducking behind a counter in the distance, it looks a lot less like a residual echo and a lot more like an intelligent entity playing a very dark game of hide and seek, actively trying to bait him further into the dark mall. This next video was recorded by a father and daughter duo who were touring the historic streets of Galveston, Texas. Galveston is widely considered one of the most haunted cities in the United States, largely due to its tragic history with the Great Storm of 1900. For these two, ghost hunting is a shared passion, but they actually managed to capture their most compelling evidence without even realizing it. While they were filming the exterior of one of the city's famous Victorian-style houses, they missed the figure standing in the second-story window. It wasn't until they got home and re-watched the footage that they saw the pale shape looking back at them before it seemingly retreats into the darkness of the room.
Alright, so we took this video a while back. It's probably about 4 years ago when I took my daughter to Galveston. We're doing those ghost tours, and later we come back and my daughter says, "Dad, look, I think I got something on one of her live photos that she did." And we've always wondered if that was something, but y'all let me know what y'all think. We think it's somebody there, like a ghost, and then he disappears. Like he's in the frame, then he disappears in the window. Now I'm gonna zoom in on it and play it. It was a live, so I have to zoom in and then do it because it's hard to see the whole video, but when we saw it there, that's what we call it. Y'all tell me what y'all think this is. So like you see there's a guy right there, like the picture of him, and then if you look, it's like he walks away, like it walks from, he's there and then he just walks away like through the thing. So y'all tell me what y'all think about that. I don't know. I know it's kind of hard to see on there, and I was trying to zoom in and zoom out and trying to get a closer look at it, but the first picture I put, it shows like it's still framing me up close, and it looks like a guy with like a hat with the white, looks like a figure, in that window. It said I had to try to zoom in because it's a live video, so you know if you push it one way, you have to zoom on it just right so it follows it. But I don't know. What do y'all guys think? Do we get something? Do we not get something? Is it maybe something? Like, I don't. Could it be a ghost? Could it not be a ghost? I wanted to research more on like that house because apparently there was a lot of stuff that went on in that house. If you've ever taken the tour in Galveston, one of them that goes by, we've taken a couple times, just because me and my daughters, we love to go ghost hunting. But we've taken it a couple times. They showed us other pictures and stuff around there. Some other pictures other people have taken. But yeah, just let me know what y'all think. I mean, I talked to one of the tour guides that gave us the tour last time. I showed her that, and she was like, yeah, I think that's something. So I don't know if she's saying that or what, but y'all tell me what y'all think.
Galveston's haunted reputation comes from a massive amount of residual energy left behind by its turbulent past. These old houses are like sponges for spiritual activity, and sightings of figures in white are incredibly common in this area. Often, these are believed to be the spirits of former residents who are still tethered to their family homes, repeating their daily routines in a loop. However, the way this figure moves is what has paranormal investigators talking. A residual haunting usually doesn't react to the living. It just plays like a movie on a loop. But this figure appears to notice the camera and immediately moves away, which suggests an intelligent entity. It knew it was being watched and chose to disappear back into the shadows of the house. What do you think that was? Was that a spirit of old Galveston watching from the shadows? Or is it just a trick of the light? I'll leave you to be the judge. The following clip you're about to watch comes from a family who brought home a toy from Grandma's house. Brand new, still in the packaging, with fresh batteries they put in themselves since none were included. And then it started moving on its own. To get ahead of the obvious explanation, they do something smart. They place the remote control on the floor beside the toy, in full view of the camera, so there is no question about whether anyone's hands are on it. Take a look.
Strange situation. This little thing, this little doll, seems to be moving on its own. The remote for it right here, you have to press the button for it to go forward or backwards. But earlier, it was just moving a little bit forward or a little bit backwards on its own. Yeah, weird. Yeah, the remote's right there. Unless it's like a glitch or something?
I don't know. I'm going to put the remote control right here. See? Nobody touch it. See?
Huh. This is weird. What could be causing that?
I don't know. And this is
New toy, new batteries, remote on the floor, and yet there it is. What makes this one particularly interesting is where the toy came from, Grandma's house. And that detail, as innocent as it sounds, opens a door that a lot of people in the comments walked straight through. Objects that pass through older homes, that sit in spaces with long histories and then get handed down, carry with them everything that space has absorbed over the years. Not the object itself necessarily, but the energy it moved through, the hands that held it, the rooms it sat in. In many paranormal traditions, the idea of an object arriving in a new home and bringing something along with it is not just possible, but considered one of the more common ways activity begins in previously quiet spaces. A brand new toy that's never been used shouldn't have a history, but the house it came from might. Whatever is making that toy move has been in the family longer than the toy has. And the question worth sitting with is whether Grandma's house was as quiet as everyone thought it was. What do you think about this one? This next clip comes from a shop owner who was lying at home reviewing her security camera footage late at night. And what she saw on that playback was not what she was expecting. Her apprentice had stayed back to close up after a late customer, and that's when things started going sideways. The door simply wouldn't close. She kept trying, pulling it shut repeatedly, and it wouldn't catch until the light inside the shop turned on by itself. At that point, the apprentice did something that honestly takes a certain kind of nerve. She walked back in, switched the light off, and said out loud, "Let me go home, don't mess with me." And just like that, she was able to lock the door and leave. But when the owner reviewed the footage from home, she noticed something her apprentice never saw. After she left, the lights came back on. Also, 2 of the machines inside the shop switched themselves on. Whatever was in that shop that night listened when she asked to be left alone, waited for her to go, and then, the moment she was gone, made itself completely at home. It let her leave, but it clearly had no intention of leaving itself. And that raises the question of what exactly she was sharing that shop with every single night before this one. I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip was posted by a TikTok content creator who had been dealing with strange activity in his home for several days before this moment. Enough that when he heard a sound coming from his living room in the middle of the night, his first instinct wasn't to just investigate, it was to grab his phone and start recording. Because at this point, he already knew that whatever was happening in that apartment was worth documenting. All the windows in the living room are closed. There is no airflow, no fan running, nothing that could account for what happens next.
Bueno, estoy grabando este video porque estoy tratando de dormir, pero acabo de escuchar un golpe duro por allá en la sala, entonces decidí grabar porque hace días que se viene presentando cosas extrañas en el apartamento. Son las 4:13 minutos de la tarde, entonces me parece muy extraño que hasta ahora están sucediendo como cosas raras. Entonces, comedor. Miren, es en el comedor. Tengo las ventanas cerradas, miren. No, esto viene sucediendo hace como una semana ya. Pues la verdad se me hace muy extraño. Se me hace muy extraño que esté pasando cosas así. No lo puedo creer. No lo puedo creer, miren. ¿Qué está pasando? ¿Qué está pasando, Dios? Llevo una semana en estas. Vieron que se movió. Esto viene sucediendo hace una semana, hace 10 días, sino que no he querido grabar, pero ya las cosas se tornan bastante serias. Ya está pasando muy seguido, entonces me preocupa, pero ¿sí vieron cómo se movió eso? ¿Escucharon? Hay un golpe raro.
Those chimes didn't move in a gentle sway, not the kind of subtle drift you might blame on a passing vibration or a change in air pressure. A deliberate, significant movement, the kind that feels less like something drifting through and more like something walking through and catching it on the way past. Almost like whatever was moving through that living room didn't see it coming. or simply didn't care enough to go around it. But whatever was moving through that living room that night, this was apparently just the beginning. A few days later, it happened again. Different room, different hour. Same unmistakable feeling that something in that apartment was making itself known. He was watching television when he heard music coming from the other room, so of course he grabbed his camera again and walked toward the sound. The room was empty, but the keyboard was on. Now a keyboard turning itself on is already difficult to explain away. But what happens next is what takes this clip to a different level entirely. Have a watch.
Bueno, voy a grabar este video porque me pareció escuchar el piano mío. Ahí se escuchó. Señor bendito. Ojalá el celular alcance a tomar ese audio porque está en la otra habitación. Pero todo es muy extraño porque yo no he tocado ese piano hoy. Miren, apagaron el televisor. Apagaron el televisor.
The sound starts again before he's even fully turned around. He looks back and the keyboard is on again, as if whatever turned it on the first time had simply waited for him to finish and then went right back to what it was doing. Unbothered, unhurried, completely indifferent to the fact that he was standing right there. That indifference is the detail that unsettles people most about this clip. A presence that stops when you enter a room and starts again the moment you turn away suggests something that is aware of him, tracking his movements and choosing when to be heard. Not hiding exactly, but deciding. And something that turns a keyboard back on 30 seconds after you switch it off has made a very deliberate decision to keep playing. But nothing in those first few days could have prepared him for what happened at 3:25 in the morning. The wind chime moving in a closed room was unnerving. The keyboard turning itself back on while he stood there watching was harder to explain. But this was the moment where whatever had been making itself known in that apartment stopped feeling like a presence and started feeling like a confrontation. You can hear it in his breathing before he even gets to the bathroom. That specific, involuntary heaviness that takes over when the body understands something the mind is still trying to process. And underneath the breathing, you can hear him pray clearly, God help me.
Otra vez se escuchan golpes en la sala. Son las 3:25, se escuchan golpes en la sala, se escuchan cosas, no he podido dormir. Van a ser casi las 4 de la mañana. Dios mío, ayúdame, Dios mío. Señor bendito. Abre la puerta. Cierra la puerta del baño. ¿Quién está ahí? Dios, ¿qué es eso, Dios? Ayúdame, Dios, ayúdame. Dios mío. ¿Quién está ahí? cortina se movió. Esa cortina se movió. Oh, Dios, Dios. Dios mío, ¿qué fue eso? ¿Qué fue eso, Dios? Dios Todopoderoso, ayúdame.
He asks if anyone is there and something answers. That moment, the question and what follows it, is the kind of thing that changes a person's relationship with their own home permanently. Because up until you ask that question and something responds, there is always a part of you that can maintain the possibility that nothing is really there, that it's the building settling, the wind, a coincidence of timing. The moment something responds to your voice in a room that should be empty, that possibility closes. He's been documenting since the sound started. And now, at 3:25 in the morning, standing in his bathroom doorway with his phone shaking in his hand, asking God for help, whatever has been in that apartment with him has finally decided to answer back directly. And even after everything that had already happened inside that apartment, he was about to find out that whatever this was, it wasn't confined to his walls, because the next time he encountered it, he was outside.
González, me copia.
Diga, le copio.
Enfócate en la cámara 6. Uno de los columpios está moviendo.
La cámara 6 ya. No, comando, no se puede ver bien, está nublado.
El otro está totalmente quieto, pero ese se está moviendo solo.
¿Cuál de los tres?
Hay uno que está bailando solo, weón.
¿En serio?
Afirma, hay alguien ahí en ese columpio, weón.
Uy, quieto, no digas cosas aparte.
Two swings in the compound yard, one completely still and the other moving the way a swing moves when someone is sitting in it, starting slow, finding its rhythm, building into the kind of steady, deliberate arc that doesn't happen by itself and doesn't happen from wind. Wind moves both swings. Whatever was sitting in that one had chosen a seat. 4 incidents across several days. A wind chime in a sealed room, a keyboard that refused to stay off, a bathroom door, and a curtain that responded to a direct question at 3 in the morning. And now, a swing carrying the weight of something unseen in the open air of a shared compound. What builds across these 4 clips is a picture of something that isn't randomly active. It's present, consistently, deliberately, across different rooms and now different spaces entirely. The pattern of it suggests something that has attached itself specifically to him rather than to the apartment. A presence that follows rather than haunts, that moves with him from room to room and apparently out into the yard when he goes there too. In many spiritual traditions, this kind of attachment is considered among the most serious classifications of paranormal activity. Not a residual energy, not a territorial presence tied to a building, but something personal, something that found him, decided to stay close, and has been escalating its attempts to make that known ever since the wind chime first moved. For this man, every room in that apartment, and apparently every corner of that compound now carries the same question. Is he ever actually alone? This next clip comes from someone who has been dealing with consistent activity in their kitchen ever since moving into their house. And the list of experiences they've documented is the kind that builds slowly and then all at once. Things being slammed in the kitchen with no one near them. Footsteps, a persistent feeling of being watched in the walkway. And then one afternoon, a glass moved itself off the counter and shattered across the kitchen floor while they were downstairs. That was the moment it stopped feeling like background noise and started feeling like something with intentions. But the Alexa situation is what really paints the picture. For weeks, it would go off after midnight, consistently between 2 and 3 in the morning, responding to requests nobody was making, being asked to do things while the house was sleeping. And then one night, it woke them up at full volume, playing the sound of a crackling campfire. The specific, deliberate sound of fire blasting through a speaker in the middle of the night in a dark kitchen. That was enough. The Alexa got moved to the bedroom, and from that moment on, it never acted up again. Whatever was interacting with it was specifically interested in the kitchen. Then the night before, their parents were due to visit from out of state, the activity peaked. The Alexa went off 6 times between 1 a.m. and 5:30 in the morning. When they went to check on the first alert, they saw the cord being lifted into the air and set back down the moment they walked in, almost like whatever was holding it heard them coming. They set up a camera, and that's when this was captured.
Travel will be...
Were you just messing with the screen?
always seems to start in Minnesota.
So we've got a silver medal now.
Now the road itself has the chance.
It just seems like the time is right.
To propel the whole sport forward.
We thought, let's ride the Olympic.
An orb, moving with a trail running from the ceiling all the way down to the floor, facing the living room from the kitchen. You have to really focus to see it. Slow, deliberate, unlike anything else in hours of footage from that same camera. And then the Alexa wake-up calls, caught on film, going off in a kitchen that had no one in it. What makes this case particularly interesting to paranormal researchers is the behavioral pattern around the parents' visit. 4 days of complete silence while they were in the house, not a single incident. And then the strong suspicion that the moment they leave, it will start again. That kind of selective activity points towards something with a level of social awareness that most people find deeply uncomfortable to consider. A presence that reads the energy of a space, responds to who is and isn't in it, and adjusts its behavior accordingly. It wasn't performing for the parents, it was waiting for them to leave. The campfire sounds at full volume in the middle of the night are the detail that lingers longest. Because of everything a presence could choose to do with a smart speaker, the sound of fire is a very specific choice. Whether that means something about what happened in that kitchen before this family moved in, nobody has been able to say. But what do you think? The following clip you're about to watch is a compilation of 2 separate incidents, 2 different stores, but connected by the same deeply unsettling thread of objects that should be completely inanimate, deciding otherwise. The first comes from a night watchman working the closing shift in the toy section of a department store. He was doing his rounds when the dolls started going off. Not 1 or 2, but a whole shelf of them simultaneously. A section full of dolls, all making noise at the same time, in a store that had been empty for hours, with no customers, no children, nothing that should have triggered them all at once. Pay close attention toward the very end of this clip. One of the dolls turns its head and looks directly at him. The simultaneous activation is the detail that removes the easy explanations. A single doll going off can be a sensor malfunction, a battery issue, a vibration from somewhere in the building. But all of them, together, at the same time, in a closed store after midnight, points toward something that moved through that aisle and triggered every single one as it passed. And then there's the second location. It's an exhibition, and this one is perhaps even harder to explain than the first, because at least the dolls had electronics inside them, sensors, batteries, something mechanical that could theoretically malfunction. What gets captured at the exhibition has none of that. The skulls on display there are made of cardboard and paper, the kind handed out in schools, simple craft materials, nothing inside them, nothing that moves, nothing that could possibly account for what the camera catches. And yet one of them turns its head.
Hechas de cartón y papel, como las que dan en las escuelas.
A paper skull turning its head has exactly one explanation available to it, and it isn't a technical one. Exhibition spaces and department stores cycle through objects and artifacts from countless sources, absorbing the energy of everything that passes through them. In both of these locations, something moved through an object that had no business moving, one with electronics that all fired at once, and one made of paper that shouldn't have been able to move at all. Whatever passed through that toy aisle, and whatever turned that paper skull, they both made their presence known through the objects closest to them. And the question worth asking is how many other objects in how many other stores are doing the same thing when the lights go off and nobody's watching? This next clip was posted by a frightened mother, and you'll soon see why she was frightened. But before you watch the clip, let's have a little background. The little girl had already told her mum that someone was in the bedroom before this was recorded. Not something, someone. Specific enough that she asked her mum to close the door and not go in. What you're about to watch isn't a child being dramatically scared of the dark or working herself up over nothing. This is a little girl who has seen something, who knows what she saw, and who is not willing to let her mother go back into that room under any circumstances.
Blakey, you okay?
There's nothing you can do or say to change that. I love you.
Do you want me to go open the door? Why? No?
Sucks for you.
Okay. Okay, I'm honestly freaking the fuck out and I don't know what to do. Just a couple minutes ago, I got up and I closed my door because she kept pointing to my room saying, Mommy, Mommy, someone's over there. And she was terrified. She was terrified. Of course, freaking me out. So I went over there and she just said, no, Mommy, come here, Mommy, sit, Mommy, don't go over there. And so I called the dog and I closed the motherfucking door. And as you can see, dude, she's still terrified. She's still terrified. She doesn't want me going over there. She doesn't want me to open the door. I'm terrified.
The mom tries to reason with her, asked if she can go open the door, and the answer is a firm, unwavering no. The kind of no that doesn't come from imagination, but from certainty. But that was only the beginning of what this family captured. The same night, the mom does what any parent torn between protecting their child and finding a rational explanation eventually does. She gets up. She tells her daughter she's going to check the room, that she'll be right back, keeping her voice steady and calm the way parents do when they're trying not to transfer their own fear. And the little girl's response is immediate. She hides her face and then she starts to cry. Not a tantrum, not frustration, the kind of crying that comes from genuine terror, from watching someone you love walk towards something you know is there and being completely unable to stop them. Watch.
Blakey, Mommy's gonna go open the door, okay? I'll be right back. It's okay. I'll be right back. And now she's hiding her face. It's okay, baby. Okay, 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 okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, tell me I'm not... What do I do?
There is a belief that runs through almost every culture that has ever documented paranormal experiences, that children, particularly young ones, exist in a state of perception that adults have long since closed off. That somewhere in growing up, in learning to categorize and rationalize and explain the world, we lose access to something we were born with. And that what looks like an overactive imagination in a frightened child is sometimes something else entirely. A clarity that the adults around them simply no longer have the equipment to share. Children that age don't sustain manufactured fear like that. They move on. They get distracted and they forget. But this child didn't forget, and several hours later, she still insists on not letting her mum go into the room, a place the little girl normally likes to run into and play around in. Some believe these presences are residual, tied to the home, to something that happened within those walls before the family arrived. Others believe they follow, that they attach not to a place, but to a person, specifically to a child, and move with them wherever they go. Which brings us to years later, a new house, a fresh start in a completely different space, with no history, no reason to expect anything to carry over from before, and then this happens. "10 minutes of sustained, focused aggression directed at something in a room that appears completely empty. Not the startled reaction of an animal that heard a noise outside or caught a scent through a window. 10 minutes of unbroken, unwavering attention fixed on a specific point in a brand new house that this family had barely settled into. The little girl from those earlier videos is older now. The house is different. Everything around her has changed. But that dog growled for 10 straight minutes at something. Make of that what you will." This next clip comes from Indonesia, posted by someone who describes this as their first encounter. Every evening after Maghrib, the Islamic prayer that marks the end of daylight, a shadow would appear through the glass block vent in their boarding room. Consistent, predictable, returning at the same time every single evening, like something that had put it in its schedule. At first, they didn't think much of it. Shadows have explanations, and the mind is very good at finding them when it wants to. And then they mentioned it to the boarding house keeper. Whatever the keeper told them in that conversation, it was enough to make them understand immediately that what they had been seeing every evening after sunset was not something that could be explained away. That was the moment, as they described it, that they realized this was their first terror. Take a look. Now, before the instinct to suggest someone outside casting a shadow takes over, that vent is positioned high enough off the ground that no person could reach it, climb to it, or stand anywhere near it to cast anything through it. The height alone removes the human explanation entirely. Whatever is appearing through that glass block every evening after Maghrib is not standing on the ground to do it. In Indonesian spiritual tradition, the timing is significant in a way that goes beyond coincidence. Maghrib is considered one of the most spiritually vulnerable times of day, the transitional window between light and dark, where the boundary between the physical world and the unseen world is at its thinnest. It is a time when Muslims are specifically encouraged to be inside, to pray, to seek protection. And it is a time that certain presences are believed to use deliberately, arriving at the exact moment when that boundary weakens and the conditions are most favorable for them to be seen. Whatever was appearing through that vent every evening after Maghrib was not lost. It knew exactly which room to come to. This next clip was posted by Cruz Drosa, someone who is both Native American and Mexican. He's babysitting his niece and nephew when his niece starts pointing at the hallway. He can't see anything, but he knows this house well enough that he doesn't need to see something to take it seriously, so he pulls out his phone. Because this is a house where the toilet has flushed on its own with nobody in the bathroom. More than once, the kind of detail that stops being a plumbing issue after the third or fourth time and starts being something else entirely. So when a small child starts pointing at a dark hallway with the kind of focused certainty that children have when they're seeing something real, he listens.
Who are you pointing at? Who is he? How come you keep pointing? Where's he at? Is he over there?
Will you read it to us, please?
Who is he? My niece keeps pointing at someone right here in this little hallway. I'm not really sure who it is, but yeah, she's like pointing upwards. They must be tall or something. Look, she's pointing again, look.
She keeps pointing, attention fixed, completely unmoved by his attempts to show her the hallway is empty. And so he decides to go look for himself. He walks toward the hallway, phone recording, moving into the darkness that his niece has been pointing at with total conviction. He can't see anything, but the hallway apparently has something to say about being investigated, because something even stranger happens. Something drops to the floor in front of them, out of nowhere, thrown from somewhere in the dark with enough force and direction that there is no version of gravity that accounts for it. Something threw that battery, and whatever threw it was standing in the part of the hallway his niece had been pointing at all along.
Yeah, she sensed something though. Like, it's crazy because, like, I know I'm just babysitting my niece and nephew. My nephew's right here. Then it's her, and then she keeps pointing at something. What is that? Yeah, man. And then she grabbed this lantern right here. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Viewers in the comments immediately started telling him to download a spirit box or ghost tube, apps that paranormal investigators use to attempt direct communication with presences, converting audio frequencies into words in real time. The suggestion alone tells you how seriously people who watched that battery drop took what they were seeing. This wasn't a crowd telling him to check his wiring or call a plumber. This was a crowd telling him to open a line of communication with whatever was standing in that hallway. But Cruz-Drosa had a different approach. His niece was scared, and whatever was in that hallway, whatever had been flushing toilets in that house, and was now throwing batteries at people who came looking for it, had officially crossed a line. So he does what anyone who has grown up navigating the space between the physical world and the spiritual one learns to do. He addresses it directly, out loud.
You gotta get out of here, man. You gotta leave, man. Honestly. You're not welcomed here. Leave. Whoever you are, leave. You're scaring my niece. Look, she keeps pointing at you. Get the fuck out of here, man.
There is something significant about the cultural context here that goes beyond a general belief in the paranormal. Both Native American and Mexican spiritual traditions carry deep, specific frameworks for dealing with presences that occupy shared spaces. Traditions that don't just acknowledge the existence of entities, but provide direct, practice methods for confronting them. The command he issues isn't born from panic or bravado. It comes from a cultural inheritance that has been navigating exactly these kinds of encounters for generations, long before ghost hunting became a hobby. Whether what was in that hallway listened, whether it left or simply went quiet, is something only that house knows. But a child who pointed at the same spot through 3 separate clips, a battery thrown from the dark, and a toilet that flushes itself when the bathroom is empty, all point towards something that has been in that house long enough to feel comfortable there. And the question worth sitting with is whether one command from an uncle protecting his niece was enough to convince it to find somewhere else to be, or whether it's still standing in that hallway waiting for the next person to come looking. I'll leave you with that one. This next clip was posted by a mother who was sitting outside in her compound, gently rocking her 4-month-old daughter in a chair. The baby is almost asleep, when something pulls her out of it. She startles, and then she looks directly toward the gate. Not the unfocused, wandering gaze of a sleepy infant, but a locked, alert stare fixed on one specific point. The way you look when something has genuinely caught your attention. Watch closely.
Sí, mira, quiero que observes bien este video y me digas qué te parece. Puede ser cualquier cosa, pudo ser una persona, pero realmente con seguridad no te sé qué decir. Observa los movimientos de mi hija de 4 meses, cómo ya está casi dormida y ahorita en un ratito como que se altera. El video no tiene audio, así que por eso se lo estoy relatando. Vean ahí cómo se alteró mi hija y ve directamente hacia el portón. Miren, ahí está observando, ahí se asomó algo. Vean eso. Vean lo extraño que el color de piel que tiene eso, vean. Y mi hija ahí está alterada y si se dan cuenta, no deja de mirar hacia el portón. Vean, mi hija está mirándolo. Ahí se volteó y eso se desvaneció. Bastante extraño.
Something is there at the gate. The skin color of it, as the mother describes it, is wrong. Strange enough that she points it out specifically, that detail catching her attention above everything else. And the baby doesn't look away, 4 months old, barely able to hold her own head up, and she tracks it with the kind of sustained focus that infants simply don't maintain unless something is genuinely holding their attention, and then it fades. There is a belief held across many cultures that newborns and very young infants exist closest to whatever exists on the other side, that they arrived so recently from wherever we come from that the boundary hasn't fully closed around them yet, and that what they see in those early months is sometimes more than what the rest of us can perceive. So, what do you think? Was it a person? The mother isn't sure, but people don't just fade. I'll leave you to be the judge of that. This next clip comes from an office where something had apparently been making itself known for a while, specifically when someone stayed back alone. Staff had been hearing things they couldn't explain, that particular unease of being the last one in a building that starts feeling less empty the longer you're in it. So they pulled up the security footage to finally see what had been keeping them company all those late nights. And this was their reaction when they saw it.
Where's the ghost?
Oh my god, it's moving around.
That is freaky. And it moves so fast. No, keep going because it'll come back.
Right there.
No, y se asoma la cámara también. It goes towards the camera.
Does it come back or does it just stop right
No, it continues. It comes back. And this is the same one that's in our office after everybody leaves because I can freaking hear it.
There it is. Mm-hmm.
What the freak?
And it moves fast.
Ando bien alterado.
Se tomó Red Bull.
More? Wow.
It does.
I said hi. It waved to the camera. You saw?
Mira. We didn't see all that shit.
Wait, oh my god.
We didn't get this far.
We didn't get this far because we were so impressed by the first one.
Wait.
Sí,
We didn't get this far?
No.
There's more. It keeps coming back.
She keeps setting the cameras up. Mira. You can see the time. Mira, ahí va, otra vez. Hala.
This is crazy.
Ando buscando a la gente, güey.
You can clear it.
Un pedazo de lid to the dust.
No, that moves that fast, Crystal.
No, and then on the same area, there's no vents right there. A ver, vamos a ver qué pasa ahí.
It's
Mira, ahí va.
49. It's on the right side.
Mira, there it is. Mira.
Oh my god, that gave me chills. That was like a person.
You could sometimes
like
you could see the silhouette as a person.
Yeah.
That one was formed bigger. That one was. Oh my god, I'm getting chills. I quit.
You never thought we'd catch it, huh?
No.
We never check the cameras. No, when we check the cameras for somebody, always looking for somebody. We don't pay attention to this.
To the ghost.
No.
Who's on call?
We need to check the one in the office.
Mira.
Right there, did you see that?
Mira.
I know your first thought is dust, and yes, security cameras pick up dust all the time, floating and drifting in the light. But dust doesn't move like this. Dust drifts. It follows air currents passively, carried by whatever is moving around it. What's in this footage moves with intention, changing direction, navigating the space, behaving less like a particle caught in airflow and more like something that knows where it's going. The co-workers watching that playback together felt it immediately. You can hear it in their voices, the sharp reactions, the genuinely unsettled energy of a group of people who went into that viewing expecting to find nothing and came out of it with goosebumps and a completely different relationship with their office after hours. Whatever that camera captured at 4:47 in the morning in an empty office, it wasn't drifting. It was moving with the quiet, unhurried confidence of something that had been in that building long before any of them showed up for work. So, what do you think it is? I'll leave you to be the judge. The following video you're about to watch was posted by a woman who was just recording herself talking to the camera. A mundane, everyday moment. Nothing felt out of place while she was filming, but when she watched the video back, she discovered something lurking in the background that totally freaked her out. She was mid-conversation, relaxed, completely absorbed in whatever she was saying to her audience, but had no idea that something in the window just over her shoulder was watching her do it. Pay attention to the window.
Nunca he sentido que me parezco a Dua Lipa, pero desde que me corté el cabello siento que me parezco muchísimo menos a Dua Lipa. Y es que muchísima gente me dice que me parezco a la Dua Lipa del 2018 más o menos, que tiene como el cabello corto.
What makes this one particularly difficult to shake is the window itself. A face appearing in a window implies a physical proximity that a shadow on a wall or a shape in a mirror doesn't carry in the same way. It shows its face and then it pulls back. In some of the darker paranormal traditions, entities that observe from windows and doorways without entering are considered among the more concerning classifications of presence. Not because they're the most aggressive, but because of what the behavior implies. Something that watches from outside, that doesn't come in, that appears just long enough to be noticed and then withdraws, is something that is studying, learning routines, learning patterns, learning when she's alone and when she isn't, building a picture of her life from the outside before deciding what to do with that information. Now think about this, she had no idea it was there until she watched the playback, which means every other time she sat in that room, she had no way of knowing whether it was at that window or not. So the most unsettling part of that isn't the one time the camera caught it, it's every time the camera wasn't rolling. What do you think that thing is? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip comes from someone who kept hearing banging sounds every time they inspect a certain storage unit, persistent enough and concerning enough that they reported it to the front desk, assuming someone had accidentally gotten locked inside one of the units. The staff had been through that entire facility multiple times. Every unit checked, every corner covered, every possible human explanation exhausted, and still the banging continued. Still nobody was found, and still the front desk, who could hear none of it from where they sat, were increasingly uncomfortable with what their tenant kept bringing to them. And then it happened again, and this time he had his camera out. You see, storage facilities occupy a strange space in paranormal research that doesn't get discussed as often as it should. These are places where people bring the objects of their lives, furniture from homes where people lived and died, personal belongings from estates, items that carry decades of history and emotional weight packed into metal units and left in the dark for months or years at a time. The concentration of objects with that kind of accumulated history sitting undisturbed in a closed facility creates exactly the kind of environment that investigators describe as a pressure cooker. Energy with nowhere to go and nothing to do but build. The staff went from dismissive to creeped out the moment they saw the footage, because hearing about banging sounds from a tenant is one thing. Watching someone walk through your facility at night with noise coming from every direction and no visible source is another thing entirely. But the banging was only the beginning of what that facility had to offer, because one night, without warning, every single alarm in the place goes off at once. Bear in mind that this wasn't a power surge tripping a single system or one unit triggering its sensor. This was every alarm, simultaneously in a facility that had just been walked through and cleared, going off together in the middle of the night, like something had decided that subtlety wasn't working anymore. A presence that starts with banging on walls and graduates to triggering every alarm in a building is following a pattern that paranormal investigators recognize immediately: escalation. The banging was an announcement, and the alarms were a demonstration. Whatever is in that storage facility was making very clear that it understood the building it was occupying, that it knew which systems could be activated and how, and that it was capable of making itself impossible to ignore when it wanted to. Whatever it is, it's not stuck inside one of those units. It has the run of the whole place, and the staff that has to work there every day is only just beginning to understand that. This next clip was posted by a woman who was home alone when she noticed something was off about her dog before anything else happened. And with animals, that's usually where the story actually begins. She's alone in the house and she isn't expecting anyone, but her dog had already picked up on something she hadn't yet, and whatever it was had shaken him in a way that was impossible to miss. Pay attention to how he's acting before anything even happens. Also, turn up your volume and listen for the door.
Buddy, are you okay? Calm down. Shh. Is that Kate? Buddy, what's wrong?
She stops recording and goes to check the door, and nobody is there. Home alone, door opened, and nothing on the other side of it to account for either the sound or the state her dog was already in before it happened. Now a dog shivering like that before a door opens on its own is the detail that this clip lives and dies on, because the sequence matters enormously. He wasn't startled by the door. He was already frightened before the door became part of the story, which means whatever entered his awareness did so through senses that had already registered something his owner hadn't. The door was almost secondary. Dogs don't shiver from drafts, and they don't tremble from the sound of a door handle turning. That specific, full-body fear response is reserved for something that has genuinely threatened them at a level we don't have access to. And whatever was in that house with her had already made its presence felt to the one in the room who was capable of feeling it. This next clip comes from Edward Saunders, and it's one that has been circulating since November 2013. Security camera footage that was set up deliberately, because what was happening in that home had already escalated far beyond the point where anyone was looking for rational explanations. The camera wasn't installed out of curiosity. It was installed because the family needed to document what they were living with. The footage is from the kitchen. A young girl is standing in front of the washing machine and dryer, drinking some water, and then something in that kitchen decides it has waited long enough. What happens to her is not subtle, it is not open to interpretation, and it is not something that any environmental explanation can account for. The reaction, the screaming, the attempt to get back into frame, all of it captured by a camera that was put there specifically because this family already knew that their kitchen was not safe. Take a look. The comments under this footage filled up almost immediately with people telling this family to leave. Not suggestions, but demands. Get the child out. Whatever is in that house has made physical contact with a child in a way that is aggressive, targeted, and deliberate. And no lease, no mortgage, no attachment to a home is worth staying for that. And that's not all that they've managed to capture. A drawer opening on its own in the same kitchen, in the same home, as if to make clear that what grabbed that little girl wasn't a one-time event, but a demonstration of something that moves freely through that space and interacts with it whenever it chooses. What makes the drawer almost more unsettling than the first clip in some ways is the casualness of it. After everything that happened to that girl, a drawer opening on its own feels almost like a statement, a reminder that whatever is in that kitchen is still there, still active, and unbothered by the camera pointed at it. It knows the camera is there. It was installed because of it, and it opened that drawer anyway. Poltergeist activity at this level, physical contact with a person, objects moving independently, interference with recording equipment, represents the most aggressive end of a spectrum that typically builds over time, which means whatever is in that house didn't start here. It started smaller, quieter, and worked its way up to dragging a child behind a washing machine. The question that nobody in that house has been able to answer is where it goes from here. The comments kept coming. Move, please move, get the kid out. So here's the question. If that were your child in your kitchen and the camera showed you what this one showed Edward Saunders, what would you do? This next clip was posted back in 2022, and it captures something happening in the hallway of his home that starts with a locked attic hatch and ends with the kind of footage that makes people genuinely uncomfortable to watch. The attic was locked, and that detail matters, because what unfolds in this hallway doesn't begin with something that was already open or already loose. It begins with something that was secured, and whatever is in that house decided that wasn't going to stop it. Have a look. This wasn't an isolated incident either. The activity in that house had been building for a while before this footage was captured. Other things happening in other rooms, a pattern of escalation that anyone who has followed cases like this one would recognize immediately. But it was the day his girlfriend got hurt that everything changed. Whatever was operating in that house had crossed from moving objects and opening locked hatches into making direct physical contact with a person. And at that point, the decision to leave wasn't really a decision at all. They moved out. But here's the theory that sits at the darkest end of what cases like this one suggest, that a presence capable of unlocking and operating a physical mechanism of staging what amounts to a deliberate sequence of events in a hallway isn't reacting randomly or expending energy without purpose. It's demonstrating capability, showing the people in that house exactly what it can do methodically, like something that wants to be taken seriously before it escalates to something worse. They left, but the house is still there, and whatever unlocked that hatch from the inside, it never had any reason to leave with them, or did it? This next clip comes from a family that had lived in their house for years without any significant reason to question what was underneath it, until one day, while cleaning, they found a hidden door, and behind that door, a bag filled with cards that could only be read under a flashlight. The cards were from Kings Park Psychiatric Center. For anyone unfamiliar with Kings Park, it was one of the largest and most notorious psychiatric institutions in New York. A facility that at its peak housed thousands of patients under conditions that have been extensively documented as deeply disturbing. Medications for schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anxiety, psychotic episodes. The records of real people, real diagnoses, real suffering, hidden behind a concealed door in a residential home, in a bag that had been sitting there undiscovered for years, while this family went about their lives directly above it. That discovery reframes everything you're about to watch. He and his mum were in the living room when it started.
Okay guys, my lights have been flickering for like 2 minutes. We heard a baby crying, and now they won't stop. 2 of the lights blew out. It's... What?
I think I just seen a shatter.
Where? Yo, I think I just literally seen the remote fall. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. I don't want to even move from over here. This is insane. Did you catch it on camera? Is anyone there? The TV's on. The blue light's on for the... Okay, this is great. What is happening? Hello? Hello? The other lamp just went off down there. Hello? Okay guys, I just caught the video because something literally rolled out of the dark in front of me, and my mom and I still haven't gone down there, so we're just staying in the flickering kitchen.
Kings Park Psychiatric Center closed in 1996. The patients who passed through it carried histories of profound psychological distress, decades of institutionalization, of medication, of experiences that left marks that some would argue don't simply disappear when the person is gone. There is a theory in paranormal research that intense psychological suffering leaves an imprint that attaches to objects, to spaces, to anything that carried it long enough. Those cards had been sitting in that hidden room for years, quietly, directly beneath this family who had no idea they were there. That's not all happened. On a separate day, he went to the basement, and whatever had been building upstairs followed him down, or had been waiting there all along, because the basement light started cycling on and off, and then the doors began slamming through the entire house, one after another.
Is there anyone here? Oh my god. No fucking way, no fucking way. Spirit? Okay, what is... Okay, my lights are... What is going on? Spirit? Is there a reason you're breaking glass? Are you upset with me that I'm recording right now? Spirit? Hello? Spirit, is there a reason that you're doing this? Okay.
The smashing of glasses in response to being recorded is the detail that separates this from general poltergeist activity and places it into something more specific, a presence that is aware it's being documented, that objects to it, and that has chosen a very deliberate way of making that known. This isn't random energy looking for an outlet. This is something that understands the situation and is reacting on its own terms. Those cards had been sitting behind that hidden door for years while this family lived their lives above them. Whatever came with those records, Whatever traveled from the halls of King's Park into a bag and through a hidden door and into the walls of that house, it had been there the whole time. It just needed someone to open the door before it felt at home enough to make some noise. The following clip you're about to watch was posted by a woman who noticed something deeply unsettling after reviewing her Wise camera footage. The TV is on in the background, a movie playing, and the motion sensor is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, picking up the movement on the screen and flagging, which means the sensor was active, responsive, and functioning correctly at the exact moment this was recorded. And then the shadow moves. Now, before anyone suggests the footage was sped up or manipulated, the timestamp is visible at the bottom of the clip, ticking forward in real time, exactly as it should. The TV is playing normally, the picture moving at the right speed. Nothing about the footage that suggests any kind of editing or acceleration. What you're seeing is happening in real time. Have a look.
Rewind it. It didn't even pick up that motion.
Here's what makes this clip genuinely difficult to explain away. You see, a motion sensor works by detecting changes in infrared radiation, heat signatures, physical presence, the displacement of air that comes with movement. The TV triggered it, but the shadow didn't, which means whatever cast that shadow either produced no heat, displaced no air, and left no physical trace that the sensor could identify, or it exists on a frequency that the technology simply has no framework for detecting. In paranormal research, this is referred to as a non-corporeal manifestation, a presence that has enough energy to be visible to a camera lens, but not enough physical density to register on sensors designed to detect living bodies. The fact that it was caught visually but left no motion signature suggests something that exists in a halfway state, present enough to be seen but not fully anchored in the physical world in the way that would make it detectable by conventional means. What that shadow was moving toward, where it came from, and why it chose that particular moment to cross that room, none of it has been answered. But what do you think? In this next clip, you'll see a specific kind of terror reserved for spaces that are supposed to be completely sealed off. When you're out in a trailer, surrounded by nothing but the elements, the lock on that door is the only thing standing between you and the unknown. But what happens when the unknown decides those physical barriers simply don't apply to it? Now, before you watch this clip, consider the mechanics of a standard trailer door. It is designed to be heavy, weather-tight, and secure. For it to not just open from a fully closed, latched position, but to violently and repeatedly slam with enough force to visibly shake the entire structural frame, it requires an immense amount of deliberate physical power. Wind doesn't turn a locked handle. Wind doesn't operate with an aggressive, calculated rhythm. Take a look at what happens when that illusion of safety is entirely shattered. As the outside camera makes chillingly clear, there is absolutely nothing out there pushing it. In paranormal research, this level of violent, repetitive manipulation isn't considered a simple residual haunting. It's classified as an active, targeted intimidation tactic. Entities capable of this kind of kinetic force aren't just passing through. They are making a psychological statement. Some researchers suggest that in highly isolated locations, geographical attachments, spirits bound to the raw land rather than a building, react aggressively to perceived trespassers. By manipulating the one barrier meant to keep the occupant safe, the entity is demonstrating that the lock is entirely useless. What do you think is really waiting on the other side of that threshold? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip was posted by a man named Tristuan. For a while now, he's been dealing with the kind of low-level disturbances that make you question your own sanity, catching fleeting movement out of the corner of his eye, seeing reflections of someone walking past when he's entirely alone, and hearing doors quietly open and close themselves around the house. Unsettling, yes, but something he had managed to live with, until the day the activity stopped being passive and became violently direct. Watch what happens when Tristan, interrupted while just trying to play a video game in his office, finally reaches his breaking point and decides to confront whatever is sharing his home.
If you're walking by my office, I want you to knock it off. Holy. Is that you making all that noise back there? This thing's always closing doors. You need to get out. Dude, will you knock it off, please? You gotta get out. You're gonna lock yourself in the laundry room again? You're not leaving? You're not gonna...
What you're looking at here is a textbook, rapid escalation. In paranormal research, there is a massive difference between residual energy, like a door casually drifting shut on its own, and intelligent, aggressive kinetic force. When Tristan steps out, finds the hallway empty, and verbally demands the entity to knock it off, he is attempting to assert authority over his own space. The response he gets is immediate and chilling. By hurling objects off the kitchen counter right in front of him, the entity is demonstrating that his rules mean absolutely nothing. It's a forceful, physical rejection of his boundaries. But the most unsettling detail isn't the flying objects, it's the door closing in the next room right afterward. That closed door isn't a retreat, it's a deliberate taunt. It's the entity drawing a line in the sand, shifting from quietly coexisting in his home to actively claiming territory. How much of this would you endure before you simply packed your bags and left? The poster of this next clip has experienced enough weird events in his house to install cameras all over. This is normal, and many people do this thinking it'll give them a sense of control, a way to monitor and protect their environment. But what happens when those cameras only serve to document exactly how little control we actually have? Being prepared doesn't make the playback any less unnerving. While the owner was fast asleep, a motion notification pinged their phone. What they woke up to find proves that whatever is walking those halls operates entirely on its own schedule. A grandfather clock is not a lightweight piece of furniture, and the glass casing on the front isn't something that swings open easily. It usually requires a deliberate grip and pull to overcome the latch or the friction of the wood. This isn't a random, chaotic burst of energy knocking a cup off a table. This is a calculated, precise manipulation of a heavy object. But there is something even more chilling about the specific choice of the object itself. A clock is the ultimate symbol of the living world, our way of tracking hours, routines, and normalcy. By physically opening it in the dead of night, the entity might be making a very deliberate statement. As the homeowner themselves noted, this activity happens on their time, not ours. It's a quiet, sinister reminder that once you fall asleep, the rules of the living no longer apply, and the house belongs to them. If an unseen presence can casually open a heavy wooden door just to prove a point while you sleep, what else is it doing just out of frame? In this next clip, we see an old, sprawling industrial factory in the dead of the night shift. There's a specific kind of sinister energy that old factories hold. They are hungry, heavy places, forged from decades of relentless, often dangerous labor. Other employees working this lonely shift have reported similar occurrences for years. Cold spots that move, the sound of footsteps on gantry platforms, and equipment in locked sections inexplicably turning on by itself. They call them residual echoes of those who never truly left the clock. For one patrol worker, those stories were just scary tales until he saw this.
Manche. Yo te deprende, no me grito. Manche, no hay nadie. manches. Desde hace rato que me andan aventando botas, pero no sé quién es. No, pero no creo que sea nadie.
It's a surreal sight. That door shouldn't be moving like that. It's an automatic door and there's no one there. It's almost as if someone or something is triggering that movement. This is what makes the footage so truly unnerving. Other night shift workers have reported seeing isolated objects move, but this isn't a cup falling off a table. It is a display of focused, kinetic power capable of manipulating heavy machinery. So what do you think happened here? A glitch in a forgotten circuit board, or the ghost of a factory floor that can't let its physical space go? I'll let you decide. The video you are about to watch was posted by a woman who had slowly come to a terrifying, isolating realization. She was no longer alone in her own home. For several months, she experienced a series of unexplained events in her house. It started with small things, items being moved, the sound of footsteps in other rooms, and doors being found open after she was sure she had closed them. Eventually, these disturbances became more frequent and intense. One night, while home alone, she heard a loud crash from downstairs that sounded like heavy furniture being moved or overturned. She decided to record the situation on her phone as she went to investigate.
Oh my god.
When you hear a violent crash in the middle of the night, standard human logic dictates that you are dealing with a break-in. But look closely at her immediate, visceral flight response. She doesn't call out a warning to an intruder. She doesn't grab a weapon to defend herself, and she doesn't freeze in place to listen. The absolute second she hears those heavy, deliberate footsteps rushing up the stairs toward her, her reaction was pure, unfiltered panic. This means she already knew whatever or whoever that wasn't a human intruder. Now that's not all that happened that night. Have a look at what happens the moment those footsteps reach her landing.
Oh my god.
The heavy footsteps stop right outside her bedroom door, instantly replaced by a violent, erratic rattling of the handle. In paranormal profiling, this specific behavior is categorized as a predatory tactic. An entity vibrating a door handle with that much sustained force isn't struggling with the mechanical lock like a human burglar would. A person tests a knob to see if it gives. This unseen mass is purposefully generating noise to maximize the psychological terror of the person trapped inside. It wants her to hear it trying to get in. It is feeding on the isolation, the anticipation, and the sheer, paralyzing dread of the moment. For a few agonizing seconds, the rattling is the only sound in the house, and then something even scarier happens. There is a chilling theatricality to what just happened. We see the agonizingly slow, deliberate creak of the door opening to reveal a pitch black, entirely empty hallway, followed instantly by an explosive, violent slam. That is not a residual echo playing on a loop. That is an intelligent, highly aware manifestation asserting total dominance over its environment. It opened the door slowly, just to prove that physical barriers and locks mean absolutely nothing to it, and it slammed it shut to demonstrate exactly how much physical, kinetic power it possesses. Unsurprisingly, the woman packed up her life and moved out of that house shortly after capturing this footage. But it leaves us with the most terrifying question in paranormal research. When an unseen presence displays this level of focused, predatory attachment to a specific individual, did she actually leave it behind in that empty house, or did she just pack it up and take it with her? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip was posted by a TikTok creator named Willow, who has found himself at the center of a very localized, very persistent haunting. In his home, the paranormal activity seems obsessively focused on one specific door that simply refuses to stay shut. After posting his initial videos of the anomaly, a commenter suggested he try a more direct approach to communicate with whatever was opening it. The method they suggested was a rudimentary alphabet system, the kind that was used on Hector Salamanca in Breaking Bad. You ask a question, slowly run through the ABCs, and wait for the entity to signal on the correct letter. Willow decided to test the theory, and this is what happened.
Right, so someone suggested that what I should do is with the door, when it opens, what I should do is I should communicate with whatever it is and start like doing like the alphabet, a bit like that scene in Breaking Bad with Salamanca when they're doing the Ouija board and he rings his bell and it's the right letter. So let's have a look and see. Right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Nothing happened. That's disappointing. That's really disappointing. I was hoping like something exciting would happen there. Nothing did. So I'm going to try it again. So if there's anything in this room with me right now, I don't want you to open the door. I want you to communicate with me. So when I say a certain letter, I want you to spell something out. So let's start with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, K, L, M, N, O, P. Nothing's happening. That is so disappointing. You want to do a Ouija board, is that it? Oh. Now it opens. So I've literally gone through. Right, I've literally gone through the alphabet 2 times. And now it opens.
Because the internet is naturally skeptical, Willow's comment section immediately filled with people claiming the video was staged. So, he did what any frustrated homeowner would do. He released the synchronized CCTV footage of the exact same moment to prove that the hallway behind the door was entirely empty. But of course, the skepticism didn't stop there. One particularly vocal commenter accused Willow of faking the entire ordeal, explicitly stating that he thinks his followers were thick and that someone was obviously just hiding behind the door, pushing it open. In paranormal research, there is a concept known as intelligent response. It's the terrifying moment an entity stops acting randomly and begins reacting directly to human interaction. Willow wanted to prove, once and for all, that he was dealing with an intelligent response. So, he sets up an undeniable experiment. He records himself physically closing the door, walks downstairs so both he and the door are in the frame of his CCTV, points his phone camera back up the stairs, and verbally demands the entity to open it. And this is what happened.
Right, so this is a response to someone who commented here. Got Deborah Evans saying that I think you're all thick and someone just opened the door. So yeah, you are right, I do think you're thick, but not my audience, just you specifically, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this door. Look, close the door. Now I'm going to go downstairs so you can see I'm nowhere near the door. Right, if there's anyone in this house right now, open that door. Right, and look, there's the camera recording me, so you can see, well, you can see with your own eyes, both sides of the door. So, yeah, explain that one, Deborah.
By providing both the phone perspective and the CCTV angle simultaneously, Willow completely eliminated the possibility of an accomplice. As he noted in his response, this wasn't just a random draft or a trick of the hinges, it was an entity actively reacting to a specific vocal stimulus. This is a crucial distinction. It's one thing to have a ghost in your house that echoes past events. It is an entirely different, far more dangerous reality when the entity starts listening and taking orders. It proves it is aware. Willow even mentioned considering bringing a Ouija board into the house to get answers, though his followers are desperately begging him not to. And just to prove that this intelligence extends beyond just playing with hinges, take a look at this final piece of evidence from Willow's living room. According to Willow, skeptics constantly try to debunk this falling whiteboard as just gravity or a faulty hook, but there is a deeply unsettling pattern to it. The board only seems to violently detach from the wall after his daughter draws a picture on it. Furthermore, the camera's motion sensor almost never triggers when the event happens, suggesting the movement doesn't register as a physical displacement of mass in a way the technology can recognize. Why would an unseen force specifically target a child's drawing? In the study of poltergeists, activity often centers around the energy of children or adolescents. Tearing down a drawing isn't a random act of gravity, it's a calculated display of jealousy, or perhaps a sinister attempt to interact with the youngest, most vulnerable member of the household. If this entity is intelligent enough to open a door on command, it is intelligent enough to know exactly whose artwork it is throwing to the floor. The following footage was captured by a security guard on a routine night patrol through an industrial building in Cali, Colombia. There is a recurring theme in paranormal research regarding massive, empty commercial buildings. During the day, they are filled with noise, movement, and human energy. But at night, when the machines power down and the halls go dark, that residual energy has to go somewhere. And for the night shift, security guards tasked with patrolling these sprawling, empty spaces alone, it often feels like they are being watched by something that never clocks out. Watch what happens to it.
¿Quién anda ahí? Puta la escalera. Escalera caída. Pucha, aquí no hay nadie. ¿Quién anda ahí? Todo está acá. No hay nadie. Esto está raro. Muy raro. Yo escuché como si alguien caminara acá arriba. Puta, abajo. ¿Quién anda ahí? No te tengo miedo. Uy, hijo de puta. No te tengo miedo. Hijo de puta. Se siente un ambiente pesado. Un ambiente pesado. No puedo ni respirar bien. Las cosas que se cayeron. La loción. Sea lo que sea, no te tengo miedo. Para nada te tengo miedo.
There are a few crucial details that make this footage so compelling. First, look at the physics of the object's movement. That yellow bottle didn't just tip over from a passing vibration or a draft. It was launched with a sudden, violent burst of kinetic energy, as if it was forcefully swiped off the cabinet by an unseen hand. But perhaps the most authentic part of this video is the guard's reaction. He takes a few cautious steps down to investigate, but whatever heavy, localized dread he feels in that space immediately overwhelms him. He doesn't try to be a hero. He turns around and fast walks out of the sector. It's the raw, instinctual flight response of someone whose primal brain has just confirmed that the room is no longer empty. But what happens when someone's flight response doesn't kick in? What happens when, instead of running away, a person decides to stand their ground in the dark and try to negotiate with the unseen? That brings us to our next piece of footage. In this clip, the same man is filming a dark corner of the building, focused entirely on a heavy green metal locker tucked under a staircase. Rather than fleeing, he is actively trying to communicate with whatever is hiding in the shadows, asking in Spanish, "Why are you doing this? How can I help you?"
¿Por qué haces esto? ¿En qué puedo ayudarte? ¿Qué necesitas? Dime, ¿necesitas algo? ¿En qué puedo ayudarte? Pero no me hagas esto. ¿En qué puedo ayudarte?
In paranormal profiling, there is a terrifying threshold known as the intelligent response. It is the moment an entity stops acting like a random glitch in the environment and proves that it is actively listening. When the man first asks how he can help, the top door of the locker slowly, deliberately creaks open. It's a calculated acknowledgement. Amazingly, the man stays completely calm. He continues to try and reason with it, asking again what it needs, before finally pleading, "Don't do this to me." But instead of escalating with flying objects or violent noises, the entity gives a much quieter but equally chilling response. The locker door simply closes itself. This wasn't a random gust of wind. This was an act of deliberate cold dismissal. By responding to a genuine offer of help, by slowly shutting the door in his face, the entity is sending a very clear message. It doesn't want his help. It has no interest in negotiating, and it cannot be reasoned with. It leaves us with a chilling thought. If attempting to communicate with an attachment only results in it shutting you out, what are you supposed to do when you realize it's not going anywhere? The following clip you're about to watch was taken in a place that carries a dark and deeply rooted kind of history, La Casa del Cura in Riobamba, Ecuador, which translates to the priest's house, is one of those places built with heavy religious ties that have since been abandoned or plagued by dark rumors. And places like this often act as massive batteries for paranormal energy. On this particular day, a group of people gathered there for a small celebration, and they experienced exactly why the locals speak of this house in hushed tones. They were simply hanging around the property when the environment suddenly and violently reacted to their presence. If this happened in any other place, maybe there would be a more scientific explanation. You could argue it was extreme thermal stress, a sonic vibration, or a sudden shift in the old building's foundation that caused that heavy pane of glass to spontaneously shatter. But in a place with a history like La Casa del Cura, logic tends to fall apart the closer you look. Because the breaking glass isn't actually the most terrifying part of this footage. It's what the shattered glass reveals. If you slow the footage down and look closely into the dark space behind the broken window, you'll see exactly what eagle-eyed viewers noticed. As one commenter pointed out, once the glass breaks, there is a black shadow behind it that disappears. It changes the entire context of the video. That glass didn't just break under natural atmospheric pressure. It was broken by whatever was standing on the other side. Whether that entity was trying to get out or simply sending a violent, unmistakable warning to the people gathered outside, one thing is certain: they were never truly alone at the priest's house. In this next clip, we see that a lot can go wrong when you decide to investigate a strange noise in the middle of the night. For weeks, this man had been plagued by the classic, quiet symptoms of an attachment, catching fleeting movements out of the corner of his eye and enduring that suffocating, constant feeling of being watched. He had tried to rationalize these subtle disturbances away, but tonight, whatever it was, decided to finally make a move. So, he hears noise again and he grabs his phone to record his search, maybe just to prove he's not crazy. He slowly walks through his dark house, shining his light around, looking for a logical reason for the noise. Then he rounds a corner and points the camera right at a large wall mirror, and this happens. The scream you just heard, that's pure shock. It's the sound of someone realizing that the thing they've been sensing in the shadows is actually standing right behind them. In paranormal research, mirrors are often considered conduits or traps for energy that exists slightly out of our conventional frequency of perception. What makes this specific manifestation so deeply sinister is not aggression, but proximity. This entity wasn't hiding in a distant closet or another room. It was close enough to touch him, waiting for the one split second he finally decided to look. Some people also believe that entities like this only exist within reflections. If that's true, it leaves us with a truly disturbing possibility. Is it trapped in the mirror, or are we only seeing the smallest fragment of what is standing right behind us in the real world, just outside our normal field of vision? The next clip you're about to watch comes from a security camera installed in a certain woman's relative's basement, and it is a stark example of how the most seemingly mundane objects can become terrifying anomalies. At the time this was recorded, the house was completely empty. The security system was armed, and everything was silent until a motion detection notification suddenly pinged the homeowner's phone. When they checked the playback, they saw a bright, elongated white object launch itself into the air and float through the dark room. Because the laundry machines are right there in the frame, the immediate logical assumption was that it was just a stray dryer sheet caught in a breeze. But was it really? Have a look at the footage. If you look closely, the dryer sheet theory quickly falls apart. Basements are famously stagnant spaces, and the homeowner confirmed there were absolutely no open windows or drafty conditions down there to cause that kind of sudden vertical lift. A piece of lightweight fabric doesn't just overcome gravity and aerodynamically steer itself across a room without a strong, localized updraft. Then, the footage takes a much darker turn. Right after the white form floats out of view, the camera picks up a chilling audio sequence. Heavy, weird footsteps, followed by a clear, guttural growl. But that's not even the detail that completely destroys any logical explanation. You see when the homeowner went down to that exact spot to retrieve the supposed dryer sheet and close the case. She couldn't find it. There was no sheet on the floor and no lint on the walls. It had simply vanished. In paranormal investigation, an object that manifests in mid-air, defies the physical environment to move, and then completely de-manifests isn't a piece of laundry. It's an energy signature, and whatever floated through that basement used a mundane shape as a disguise, leaving behind a growl to prove it wasn't just passing through. This next clip was posted by a young woman who was casually scrolling through her Facebook memories when a seemingly mundane video from a year ago popped up. When she originally filmed it, everything felt completely normal, but listening back to it now, she caught a deep, guttural audio anomaly that she absolutely did not hear in the moment. You see, sometimes the most unsettling paranormal evidence isn't captured during a ghost hunt, but is sitting quietly in your own digital archives, waiting for you to notice it. To make matters worse, she wasn't the only living thing in the video that sensed something was wrong. Pay close attention to the stray cat in the frame. Animals have a visual and auditory frequency range far beyond human capabilities, and this cat is completely hyperfixated on a blank wall, locked onto something that the camera lens simply cannot see. Turn your volume up and take a listen.
Chicken.
Audio pareidolia is a psychological phenomenon where our brains try to find familiar words in static or distortion. But what happens when multiple people hear different yet equally terrifying things? Neighbors who reviewed the footage claim the voice is whispering silence, while others are convinced it says Satan. The woman herself hears something closer to a guttural "get out." But this audio anomaly is just the tip of the iceberg, because this entire townhouse complex seems to be an active paranormal hotspot. The local kids report seeing figures in the dark, and multiple mothers have complained of doorknobs twisting on their own and unexplained heavy knocking echoing through the shared walls. Inside the woman's own home, the activity has taken on the chilling characteristics of a mimic. Her mother frequently hears her daughter's voice, calling out when she isn't even home. On one occasion, while the woman was in the shower, blasting music, her mother clearly heard someone whistling just outside the bathroom door. Even the family dog, Zaya, is acting like the house is under siege. Recently, the dog abruptly sat up and began aggressively growling at an empty room. After doing a full tactical sweep of the house, Zaya finally took up a defensive post at the top of the stairs, silently waiting for whatever she had tracked to come up. When the animals in your house are standing guard and the videos on your phone are whispering to you, it might be time to break the lease. What word did you hear hidden in that audio? This next clip taps into one of the most universal childhood fears, toys that seem to have a life of their own. The footage shows someone lying in bed in a dark room while their baby doll randomly begins singing at 2 a.m. Before we watch, we have to address the most common skeptical explanation. Whenever a video like this surfaces, people immediately argue that there is nothing paranormal happening and that the creepy, distorted audio is simply the result of dying batteries. And on a surface level, they are right about the sound. As battery voltage drops, a toy's sound chip slows down, stretching a cheerful song into a demonic drone. But that explanation fundamentally ignores the mechanics of how these toys actually operate. A dying battery does not magically close an open circuit. For an electronic doll to play its audio sequence, a physical trigger must be activated. A button pushed on its stomach, a hand squeezed, or a string pulled. Keep that terrifying reality in mind as you listen to the singing and pay very close attention to the laugh at the very end. The batteries might be dying, but the energy source isn't the problem. The reality is that for this doll to start singing at 2 a.m., something else in that dark room had to walk over and physically squeeze it. It completely changes the context of the footage. Commenters immediately recognize the danger, urging the creator to light a match, burn the doll, and get out, calling whatever squeezed that toy a demon. To make matters even more unsettling, the original poster ominously replied to the panic by stating, "The archives contain even darker things than this." So what do you think is happening here? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip comes from a home surveillance system back in 2018, shared by a woman who had been experiencing a string of odd occurrences at her former home. When we think of poltergeist activity, we usually picture violent chaos, things being thrown off counters, glass shattering, or doors slamming in the dark. But what happens when an unseen presence decides to do the exact opposite and starts organizing your living room? In the footage, you can see a pair of white shoes left sitting out of place, right in the middle of the area rug. Watch what happens to the environment, the strange orbs drifting through the room, and especially the white shoes. The person who posted this playfully asked if this was simply a tidy ghost who just wants everything in its place. As you just saw, the white shoes were physically moved from the center of the rug directly to the area where the rest of the household's shoes are kept. But from a paranormal investigator's perspective, an entity cleaning up after you isn't actually a helpful domestic quirk. It is a deeply territorial display of power. Spirits that engage in this kind of hyper-specific, organizational kinetic movement are often trapped in a domestic loop, obsessively maintaining a home they no longer own. Or, even more sinister, it's an intelligent entity aggressively enforcing its own rules on the current occupants. By moving your personal belongings to where it thinks they belong, the entity is sending a quiet but heavily controlling message. You are merely a guest in this house, and you need to respect their space. If a ghost starts doing your chores just to prove a point, how long until it decides you are the thing that is out of place? In this next clip, we see the stark difference between a haunting that merely wants to be heard and one that wants to be physically felt. For a while, this guy had been dealing with the former. He had been hearing unexplained sounds echoing through his house and catching glimpses of things moving in his kitchen out of the corner of his eye. It was unsettling, but it hadn't escalated into outright violence. That all changed on a completely average evening. He was just upstairs trying to watch a baseball game when a massive, violently loud bang echoed from the lower level. Grabbing his phone, he heads downstairs to see what on earth could have made that much noise. What he finds proves that whatever is in his house isn't just making sounds anymore.
Alright, so I was just up watching the baseball game and I heard a loud fucking bang down here. Oh shit. Okay. What the fuck? 1, 2, 3. Oh shit. Okay, so that's what I heard. All the chairs knocked down backwards. Holy fuck. What was that? What the fuck was that? Something just flashed in front of the basement steps. Holy shit, this is really freaking me out. Holy shit. Oh my god.
That is what a sudden, explosive release of kinetic energy looks like. The dining room has been completely trashed, with heavy wooden chairs thrown backward and knocked entirely onto the floor. This level of physical displacement requires an immense amount of deliberate force. In paranormal theory, when an entity physically manipulates the environment to this extreme degree, it requires a massive concentration of raw energy. If something has the power to generate that much force and throw heavy furniture around while you are just sitting upstairs, what is stopping it from walking up those stairs next? What do you think caused all that commotion? I'll let you be the judge. In this next clip, we move away from private homes and look at the after-hours footage of a commercial space. There is a very specific, lonely kind of quiet that falls over a restaurant bar after all the patrons have gone home and the staff is locking up. But as this footage shows, just because the building is closed doesn't mean it's empty. The video focuses on a tiled patio area where 2 large industrial-wheeled trash bins are parked side by side in the dark. Watch what happens to the grey bin on the right. As you just saw, the trash can on the right begins to smoothly and deliberately roll across the tiles entirely on its own. Now, skeptics might immediately jump to the wind as an explanation. But consider the physics of the object. These are heavy, commercial-grade bins. A strong gust of wind might catch a lid or even tip an empty, top-heavy bin over, but it takes sustained, directional kinetic force to smoothly push a wheeled object of that size across a textured tile floor. Also, if it was wind, it would affect both bins and not just one. It leaves us with that lingering, unsettling question regarding poltergeist activity. Why this object? An entity manipulating a mundane, heavy object like a trash bin isn't trying to send a complex message. It is simply flexing its ability to interact with the physical world, proving that it has the density to move things in our reality. So, what do you think this was? This video you're about to watch comes from the home surveillance footage of a co-worker's house. According to the person who shared this, the homeowner has been dealing with a heavy, oppressive presence in this specific area of their house, claiming that they repeatedly see this exact same shadowy figure lurking around late at night. Finally, their security camera triggered and captured what they've been dreading. In paranormal analysis, whenever a hazy, indistinct shape drifts across the screen like that, skeptics immediately jump to a few standard conclusions. They'll argue it's just an out-of-focus bug walking across the camera lens, or perhaps the headlights of a passing car refracting through the glass. But we can definitively rule the car lights out. The co-worker who lives in the house confirmed that at the exact moment this anomaly was recorded, there were absolutely no cars driving by outside and no external lights shining onto the property. If there is no external light source, there can be no reflection, which means this shadow light anomaly wasn't caused by the environment. It was an intelligence generating its own luminous energy to manifest in our reality. What the camera caught wasn't a trick of lighting or a wandering insect. It was the physical visual discharge of the exact recurring entity the homeowner knows is waiting for them in the dark. What do you think about this? This next clip shows an anomaly that has baffled a homeowner for the last 4 years. One night, a strange, erratic light source triggered her camera's motion sensors, so she uploaded the video and it sparked a massive debate. The movement is so distinctly autonomous and fluttery that the creator's friend and dozens of people in the comments are entirely convinced the camera captured a fairy. Naturally, skeptics were quick to jump in with two main scientific explanations. Either it's simply a trick of the light reflecting off the kitchen counter, or it's the camera's infrared lights refracting off a tiny spider web hanging just in front of the lens. Keep those theories in mind as you watch the footage. If you watch the trajectory closely, both of those logical explanations completely fall apart. First, if this were merely a reflection, like a passing car's headlights sliding across the kitchen counter, the light would physically bend, distort, or break the moment it crossed the edge of the countertop. But it doesn't. The light maintains its shape and trajectory perfectly. It doesn't bend with the counter because it isn't on the counter. It is a free-floating, three-dimensional energy source moving through the air directly in front of it. The spiderweb theory is much more plausible. In fact, it's exactly what the homeowner thought when her Ring notifications first started going off like crazy. To solve the problem, she physically went out into the room and scrubbed that entire corner, checking for and clearing out any spider webs within a 5-foot radius. But here is the detail that turns this from a mild curiosity into a terrifying encounter. The footage we just watched was recorded after she cleaned the area. Whatever this anomaly was, it wasn't a web and it wasn't leaving. The persistent, unexplained presence of this energy finally pushed the homeowner to her breaking point. She was so spooked that she grabbed her dog at 3 a.m., abandoned the house, and drove 40 minutes to sleep on her parents' couch. When she finally returned the next day, the anomaly was completely gone and she never saw it again. What do you think that was? I'll let you be the judge. This next clip takes us into an environment universally recognized as a massive focal point for the unexplained, a cemetery. In paranormal research, graveyards are considered active batteries of residual energy that hold a dense concentration of spiritual activity simply due to the emotional weight and history attached to the ground. The footage comes from a creator who makes a regular habit of live streaming his late-night graveyard visits. As he stands in the dark, his face covered by a black balaclava while he interacts with his chat, pay close attention to the background just over his right shoulder.
Graben!
Pinche velador está loco.
en Hidalgo. Dylan Adrián, ¿es en Hidalgo? No.
Right in the middle of his broadcast, the distinct silhouette of what appears to be a full-bodied figure casually walks through the shadows directly behind the tombstones. When someone repeatedly uses a final resting place for entertainment, they inevitably run the risk of disturbing whatever is anchored there. Spirits, much like the living, can eventually reach a breaking point when their peace is constantly interrupted. This manifestation doesn't feel like a random, wandering soul just caught on camera by accident. Given how often he streams there, it feels much more like a subtle, calculated warning. It's a quiet, but deeply unsettling way for the residents of that graveyard to let him know that they are watching, they just want to rest, and they have finally had enough of his cameras. If an entity is willing to step out of the shadows and walk directly behind you while you're live streaming, it might be time to find a new location to film.